EGW says that every true disciple of God is born into the kingdom a missionary. Is there evidence of this in Scripture? There's a story that's found in 2 Kings chapter 5, and it's the story of Naaman. Now, Naaman was a great and honorable man. He was the commander of the army of the king of Syria, but he was also a leper. Now, the Syrians, one day they went on a raid, and they brought back with them a young servant girl from Israel. And it was her job to serve in Naaman's household. Now, this young girl, when she knew that her master Naaman had leper, she told his wife, "Listen, if only my master could meet the real prophet of God, God could heal him." And when Naaman heard of this, he thought, "What do I have to lose?" So he immediately runs over to the king of Syria. He writes letters, and they send it to the king of Israel. Now listen to how sad this is. When the king of Israel read these letters, he tore his clothes and says, "What am I, God, that I should heal this man?" He became very scared. He didn't really think or believe that God could heal Naaman. But unlike him, there was a little girl, a slave, a captive, a servant who believed in the power of God, who was a true missionary of God. Now, the prophet heard of this, that the king tore his clothes, and the prophet said, "Listen, king, send him to me, because man is not going to heal Naaman, but God is going to heal Naaman." Naaman shows up, and the prophet tells him this: "You're going to go to that filthy river over there. You see that river? And you're going to dip in that river, Naaman, 7 times. Naaman was now going to see if he really was a man of faith and willing to do everything in order to get healing. Now, in the beginning, he was a bit hesitant. He was a bit prideful, but eventually his servant convinced him that he should go into that river and dip 7 times. What did he have to lose? Naaman went into that river and dipped 7 times, and when he came out of that river, his skin was like the skin of a baby. And Naaman came out of that water, and not only was he healed from his leprosy, but the leprosy of his heart, his sin, because God always does so much more than we expect him to do. Check out what Naaman says in verse 15. He says, "Now I know that there is no God in all the earth except in Israel." Do you see what just happened? This young Hebrew girl who was a slave was a missionary of God, used in such a way that this commander of the army of Syria was able to know and confess who the God of Israel is. Now, I don't know what your job description is. I don't know where you work. I don't know who you hang around. I don't know your family or your friends. But I know that God can use you in unbelievable ways, the same way that he used this servant girl. I want to tell you a quick story. You know, we volunteer at the Broward Outreach Center. They opened in 1922, about then, and their mission is to help the homeless population. Men, women, children, they provide resources to help these people get back on their feet. One day we went there around Christmas time. We were handing out socks, and the socks eventually ran out. A young woman came up to us and says, "Amanda, I didn't receive a pair of socks." And I said, "I'm so sorry, but I ran out." Now, there was a woman standing next to her who also had only received 1 pair of socks, and she looks at that woman and says, "Here, you can have mine." That day, that woman preached to me a sermon, preached to the I Believe Ministries a sermon that we would never forget. And that's the sermon of living out God's love in action and in deeds, not just pretty words. So wherever you currently find yourself, in whatever position God has placed you in, whether it be at the Broward Outreach Center, whether it be as a slave as was this young Hebrew girl, just know that every true disciple of God is born into his kingdom a missionary.